Medical marijuana. Facts behind the fiction. Before we go into detail looking at medical benefits, case studies or anything further, let's first look at cannabinoids and what they are and the purpose they serve. Cannabinoids are chemical compounds which are found within the marijuana plant. There are 113 different ones which are situated in the plant. Two of the main cannabinoids found within marijuana are THC and CBD. THC is the one you may have heard of as it's probably the most common. THC is the cannabinoid which essentially is responsible for getting you high. THC is the most psychoactive ingredient found within the marijuana plant, and it includes many benefits such as pain relief and relaxation. It also has drawbacks, however, such as making you feel tired and sometimes unproductive. CBD is another cannabinoid which is found within the marijuana plant. It is similar to THC, yet also different in many ways. CBD doesn't get you high, which allows it to be used a lot more for medicinal uses. CBD has a huge range of benefits with actually none to very little drawbacks. It contains many benefits such as anti-inflammatory properties as well as anxiety reduction. Here is a picture that helps to show some of the medicinal benefits which come along with both THC and CBD. Whilst investigating and looking at my topic, I looked at a couple different stories. One which had benefited from the substance and one who potentially could benefit from the substance.
The family of a young boy who's been refused a licence to take cannabis to control his epilepsy has vowed to fight against the ruling.
The first case study I looked at was a young man named Alfie Dingley. He is a 6-year-old boy who suffers from a very rare genetic mutation which causes him to have multiple seizures a day. After time went by, the parents came across a cannabis-based oil which could potentially help Alfie. After consuming the medicine, his seizures dropped drastically from 150 per month down to just the 1. The medicine is illegal, however, in the UK, so his family had to move to the Netherlands for the treatment. The family soon had to return due to money issues, but the cannabis oil did do wonders. It's still illegal in the UK, so a petition has been made in order for the product to be used for medicinal purposes and to help other people just like Alfie. Another story in which I looked at was another young man named Darren Blackwell who was admitted to hospital at the tender age of 14. He is a rare case who suffers from one of the rarest cancers in the world. Darren had Langerhans cell sarcoma and he also contracted leukemia, and having the two at one time had never been heard of before. Nothing was working for Darren and he was on his last lifeline. He didn't have much longer left to live until his mother did some research into a cannabis oil. His mum was left with no other options, so after receiving her son's blessing, she went against the doctor's words as it was illegal and untested on children. However, she bit the bullet and admitted it to her son. The cannabis oil worked miracles for Darren, and within 10 minutes the pain had eased. He made a full recovery and he is now in good health. The marijuana-based product saved the boy's life. Whilst in Amsterdam, I managed to visit a Smart Shop, which is a shop which focuses on and sells products based on mind-opening and expanding techniques. However, they also specialise in CBD products, so I arranged an interview to find out a bit more about the substance, as well as some surrounding topics. For those who don't know, what is CBD?
CBD are cannabinoids. Cannabinoids are parts of the marijuana plant, components in the marijuana plant, and you have a lot of them. It's like 421 different components, which is CBD, CBN, THC, all different ones.
How can CBD be beneficial?
In our body, we have receptors to get the cannabinoids in our system. They can be beneficial for people who have cancer. Some cannabinoids can help to reduce like the growth of tumors.
Can it help like pains and stuff like that as well?
Also pain. There's so much different medical reasons people use it, but it's really difficult because it's so many components, different ones, and different kinds of cancer and different kinds of MS and different kinds of people, right? That we're not sure which one will help.
Yeah,
the one.
They haven't quite got enough research into it at the moment, but obviously.
Yeah, because there isn't done much research at all.
But obviously, as time goes on, hopefully.
Right. Yes, we hope.
Invest more money and look further into it and stuff.
Yes, this should be perfect.
Yeah.
Like if people did some research, because there is even some cannabinoids that can tell our cells, because if you have cancer, the cells are like growing because they don't have the connection between them to tell them, hey, we have enough liver cells, so stop growing liver cells, right? So there's not a connection anymore, and the cannabinoids or the CBD can tell your body like, okay, this is enough, you have to destroy yourself, or stop growing, or like give the signals back to the cells that they need.
How is CBD different to THC?
It's a different component in the marijuana plant. Most of the time, THC is more a high. You feel stoned, like a little bit heavy and relaxing or uplifting, like a sativa. Most of the time, that's like the THC, and the CBD is more in the body.
Do you feel that marijuana should be legal in the UK for medicinal uses?
I think they should be legal everywhere. Some strains can make you more creative, or some like relaxing, and like.
And they can have some really beneficial, like really helpful.
For some people,
powers,
I think yes. For some people, can be really beneficial, but maybe not for all of us. Yes, and for maybe a short time, like.
But for medicinal purposes, you think
or-
it should definitely be.
Yeah, of course. People should, in like have the knowledge, like chemotherapy and that kind of stuff with the heavy illnesses and diseases. People really have like trouble, or epilepsy. Like people really help like with epilepsy. Even
Yeah,
children.
I've looked at different case studies and how like marijuana's helped like people's seizures and.
And I'm
really
getting
bad.
goosebumps right now thinking about it, because it's like my dad died of cancer.
Oh, really?
And he smoked a lot of pot in his life when he was like a teenager, and then he stopped, and then he got cancer like I think he was 42 when he died, very young. We didn't know what like marijuana could do for him, but
Yeah.
now I know. It's kind of frustrating.
Yeah.
Nobody told me.
I managed to get an interview with the lead college tutor at my college to find out some more regarding her opinion on the topic of medicinal marijuana. It was a good chat, and I got to find out more about someone's opinion who is high up in the educational sector. So for the start of the interview, if you could just state your name and your status.
My name is Swapna, and I work here as lead tutor for faculty.
I'm conducting this interview in order to find out the opinion of someone who has authority and someone who has experience with drugs in the educational sector. I want to find out another person's opinion to put together my array of diverse thoughts. If I said the word marijuana, what does it mean to you?
The first word that comes to my mind when somebody says marijuana is drugs. And it's a very negative connotation. It's not a positive one.
Before they should have that initial thought, they should need to look into it and just feel like see what it can do for people.
But by definition, initial thought is exactly that.
Yeah.
It is your
Yeah.
first thought.
That is my initial thought.
Yeah, so maybe what people should do, and everybody definitely should do, is for anything, not just this, for anything, that initial thought needs to be put under the microscope of whether it is actually a valid thought or whether it is something that we have learned. So whether it's a true representation
Yeah.
of what it is.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Or
Because I feel like I could ask anyone from any form of background, any form of race, anything like that, and I feel like every single person's initial thought is going to be drug.
yeah, because we have either been shown or we have seen, in most cases than not, actually, in more cases than not, we have actually seen the negative side of it. We have not been shown, if at all, there is a non-negative side of it. I'm not even saying positive, I'm saying non-negative side of it. So the initial reaction will and is based on what our experiences have been or what our perception is. And the perception in most people's mind, including myself, is that marijuana is something that is a hallucinogenic drug.
Do you only see cannabis in a negative light, or do you believe it could be positive if handled correctly? So like you said,
I
obviously
have-
your initial thought is drug, but do you feel like, are you openly aware to some of the positives or some of the
I'm quite
good things it
aware.
can cause for people?
Yeah, I am quite aware of things that have taken place around the world. So in Australia especially, there's a study that's being conducted as we speak, and that is based on all of these positive medicinal uses of cannabis that people are trying to research on. Unfortunately, the situation is that the research funding that's required to research all of these things has been cut off, which wasn't the case, you'd be surprised to know, which wasn't really necessarily the case a few decades ago. So a few decades ago, I think it was in Israel, where somebody actually wanted to research on the medicinal use of cannabis. And I could be wrong about Israel, but somebody actually wanted to research about this. And people were allowed to research it under scientific conditions. So it wasn't a haphazard buying it off the internet or buying it on the street corners or anything like that. It was actually, the oil was actually used and tested for medicinal purposes like any other medicine would be, like its initial research phase. And then a few decades earlier, especially I think it was United States that stopped encouraging this. And whatever the theories behind that are, it could be termed as a conspirational theory, but now the funding isn't there for this research. So the reality is that people have seen the negative sides of it, and there are multiple negative sides, especially of skunk.
Yeah.
As you would know, cannabis has two main ingredients.
Yeah.
One is massively hallucinogenic, and it is a psychotic ingredient, and the other
THC,
one,
and the CBD.
and the CBD
Yeah.
is it is supposed to have
Yeah.
medicinal qualities to it. The THC, we've all seen real life examples of it day in, day out, because it is hallucinogenic, because it can lead to psychosis. So we see that every day, but we have not seen
The CBD.
the other side.
Yeah.
That's because of lack
Yeah.
of funding, that's because it is now in such a harsh light, it is seen in such a negative
Yeah.
light, that there is not much funding there. Well, I'm not expert, I don't know enough about the CBD side of it, whether it actually does have any long-staying good effects if it's used as a medicine under controlled conditions. All of these things have to be in place. It has to be in controlled conditions. It has to be tested. It cannot just be made generally available. It has to go through all of these tests like any other medicine that could come into the market.
But like you said,
Yes.
the funding needs to be there, because if no one's
Yeah.
going to fund that research, how are we meant to move on and
Yeah.
go further? Because
Yeah.
we're only going to be stuck with the research that not necessarily the research, but the knowledge that we've been passed on. Like you said, how it's all automatically seen as a bad thing. That's only going to go on unless we do the research and find out more and try and elaborate on what
Yeah.
we've already done.
And prove either this way
Yeah.
or that way,
Yeah.
whether it is good
Mm.
or not so much. So if the negative effects of it outweigh the medicinal effects in the long term, I'm not talking about short term, impact, medicinal impact, but if we don't conduct these studies, then we won't ever find out, and that I think is the crucial problem. However, we should never ever ever minimize what THC does and how many young lives, especially you are in the prime sector, aren't you? You are young man between the ages of 14 to about 25, where there is a real danger that the hallucinogenic, especially if it's increased, which is skunk that you
Yeah.
probably find on the streets nowadays, and then that has got so much of that hallucinogenic factor into it because people want to get high real quick and without paying too much money, so it's cheap. So if that is a proven thing, we see that in our jobs as teachers, day in, day out. I'm going to take this to a slightly philosophical angle if I can. You talk about death, right? And yes, a person, we all have known, a person dies, as in dies and cannot breathe again, right? So physically you die, right? But the high THC has been known to kill that person without physically killing them.
That's what I mean.
And I
It's
have
not-
seen real examples of somebody as determined and young and intelligent. It could be somebody like you. And then
It's slowly eating away, and it just takes it
and
away.
the way I describe it is it fries your brain cells.
Yeah.
It actually fries it. Once you fry something, you cannot bring it back.
Yeah.
You cannot unfry it, right? And this is why cannabis is God. It is not God, it has earned its negative publicity. So whether the person physically dies or not, when the person mentally dies,
They're not that same person anymore.
they're not. They really are not.
Yeah.
And I've seen real life examples of this. So people who were a certain person, so you say, sorry, I'm going to use your name. So Lewis, I know Lewis as, you know, this dynamic young person who's ambitious, who's doing this, who's doing that. He has got this sense of humor. He smiles at this, he laughs at this, he gets angry at this thing. I have seen this Lewis go through that. It was described as a minefield. Somebody described it to me. Somebody very clever described it to me as a minefield. He said, Swapna, these young men and women, they go through this minefield, right? Sometimes they're lucky to get through it at the other end without stepping on a mine. Sometimes, however, they are unlucky enough to step on a mine. It could be a tiny little mine, it could be a massive explosion.
But that's a risk that you take, isn't it?
When you see, and I don't think that many young people are aware of that risk that they're taking. So when you make that, you know, yes, my first reaction, everybody's first reaction is based on that, because we see that every day.
It's hard not to have that opinion
Absolutely.
when you're physically
And it's not even
watching
an
it
opinion,
happen.
we see that happening. We've seen reality in that. It's not just an opinion. You see, it's not an opinion about somebody's haircut. We see that.
It's physically. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not your opinion because it is physically happening. It's
Happening.
actually factual. Like it's physically.
And that person is mentally no longer alive, or it's somebody else and reborn, if you like, as somebody else who can.
When it comes to the laws surrounding marijuana, there is a large difference between the laws within the UK and Amsterdam. As you may know, the UK has a complete no-go policy when it comes to the drug. The drug is a Class B and is illegal to possess, sell or give away, making it completely illegal. However, this is different in Amsterdam. Although many of you may think it's legal there, it's actually not. Marijuana is decriminalised in Amsterdam, which means it isn't legal, but it's a bit more lenient. Shops called coffee shops exist in the country where you're allowed to go and consume marijuana. However, you are only allowed to buy up to 5 grams at any given time. This works well with the law that you are only allowed to possess up to 5 grams on the street before it comes intent to supply. The laws surrounding marijuana in Amsterdam are actually extremely complicated, so if you are looking to visit, make sure to be very careful.
Due to being a head shooter, I'm assuming you have seen the negative effects marijuana can cause. Do you feel like if it was legalised, monitored and taxed, it would allow a safer environment to consume marijuana?
Not at all. I will never concede to that. I will definitely say yes, the medicinal values need to be researched more, and that needs to be, if it has any merit in it, then obviously the medical profession needs to take that into account. But legalizing marijuana and being made available, whatever, in whatever quantity, just like, for example, are you asking, is it just like maybe cigarettes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you could just go down.
No, definitely not.
Do you
What good will that do? Because that will still be there. The effect that it potentially has, it will still be there. And I'm not saying that's the only thing that changes a person's mind. Of course, there are some underlying conditions, underlying mental health conditions that trigger it also, or that could support that change in a person. But if you make it really, really easy for anybody to go and buy it, like cigarettes, what is there to stop?
But do you feel like if people are going to be going and getting it anyway, because obviously, like, these people are getting it, however they're getting it, they're still getting it as it is. Do you feel like, how you said about skunk, for example, if someone was to go to a street dealer and pick up their skunk, if they were going to go and do that anyway, would it be safer for them to, if it was legalised in the country, for them to go get their safer, cleaner...
If it was legal, it was openly sold, the only thing we're enabling is for people to go and buy it, so that we take the shame away from it. And the shame is not for the medical use. The shame is, the stigma is, or the fear is that use of it. And if we openly sell it as cigarettes, we normalise it. It's normalized enough in the society today where kids will come to us and say, yeah, it's available anywhere, and it's available really cheap. But if we as a system, as a society, legalize it, then we're taking away that one little last hurdle,
That we
whatever
have
it is,
to
that we
stop
have,
it from happening. Yeah.
So it's like, I feel that it's almost like saying, oh yeah, let's be okay with somebody coming into your house and stealing something. They're going to do it anyway, aren't they? So why punish them? That doesn't seem logical, does it? So I don't think this, and that drug actually does get into your mind, and it does steal you yourself away from you. I'm not saying it happens in everybody. There are those people who walk through that minefield and get to the other end.
But there is that risk
But
that
there
you're
are
potentially.
yeah.
Mm.
Why? What? So we won't say, oh, not everybody steals, so let's make it legal. We know everybody doesn't steal, but that still doesn't make it right.
Are you aware of some of the miracles that medicinal cannabis products have caused?
I'm aware only because I've been studying, only because I've actively gone out to look for information on Google. I'm aware only because I made it a point to go and find it
Yeah,
out.
but do you feel like you just said, but you had to research to find that? Do you feel like these stories should be more publicly aware? Like, for example, if you hadn't have gone to research that, you wouldn't have found it. Do you feel like it should be in the public eye, so then you would be able to see that story without necessarily having to go taking that extra step to go and search it? Or just
I'm going to take one step back. These stories, as you call them, they, first of all, they should be researched properly, not stories, but the use of marijuana as medicine there should be a program, well funded, and it should be researched first. And only then these results should be published. Right now what's happening is it is being published as stories. Now, maybe a few people understand the fact that these are done in controlled situations. But really, a 16, 17-year-old kid, when she is trying to convince themselves that, everybody else is doing it, and I saw that documentary the other day where there was medicinal use, so it can't really be that bad, can it? So this unregularized information sharing, and they're forced to do it, aren't they? These parents who say, that my son, my daughter had all these fits.
They have the literally on their last. They can't turn to any other form of.
And they are forced to almost leak the information like that.
Yeah.
So why not then? I feel, this is only my opinion, I'm not an expert, but why not let's put some money towards research, let's control the research properly, then find out what's the truth.
Other typically recreational drugs are being tested and trialled for medicinal purposes. A product made with a ketamine base has shown great results in the aid of major depression. What are your thoughts on this?
I haven't researched into that.
Would you look at other drugs, like I just said, other drugs like ketamine or other drugs that are typically seen in a bad light? Do you feel like more research should also be done into them to look for their medicinal benefits, or do you feel like they're absolutely a no-no because they already have that negative light shed on them?
First of all, I'll change a couple of words that you said. They're not seen as negative. They have proven themselves to be negative. So that's a given. That's not, it's not somebody's perception of it. They have proven themselves to have that negative impact on that particular brain, or those particular brains that have gone through it. Anything, if you just hold on to just one thought, if you say, no, what I'm thinking, that's the only thing that's right, and if you don't even contemplate, don't even think about, oh, actually, that other side could be right. Could be. Let's find out if it's right or not. I think that's the right way to go about it. So I usually hold up a coin when I have students sat in front of me, and I hold up a coin in front of them, and I say, what do you see? And generally they'll say heads, and I'll say, no, I don't see heads. There is no heads here. I see tails.
Yeah, you see.
Yeah. Generally kids see the point. So if that is what we're doing with anything, not just this issue, with anything in the world, anything in our lives, then that's wrong. You have to see.
You feel like you have to be open-minded. Medical marijuana has helped many people who suffer from seizures as a result of different illnesses and diseases. If you were to suffer from such a terrible disease, would you turn to medicinal marijuana for aid?
Answer your question, to sort of put it pedantically, to answer your question. I'll tell you what. I wouldn't say about myself, but I'm a parent also. And if my son, I've got two sons, and if my son suffers from something that I can see them going through pain every day, that they cannot live their life fully because of that. So, you know, we were talking about seizures,
Yeah.
350 seizures
Yeah.
per month, and that's one of the case studies that is
Yeah.
sort of highlighted in the media, and that's how I know it. As a parent, if I see my child go through that, and if then somebody comes and says to me, Swapna, maybe you should try this. Someone else has tried this and this has gone well. I'm not convinced that I will turn around and say no. I'm not convinced that I'll turn around and say, no, actually, I'll wait even longer.
It's hard for you to put yourself in that position because when you have to, I feel like you'd have to physically see your son or your daughter in that pain for you to think, right.
I'm not convinced that I'll just turn around and say, no, it hasn't been researched enough. I don't know much about it, so I'm not going to try. I will definitely be compelled to go and find out, at least meet those parents and at least talk to them, see what it is for me, for myself, to be convinced to use it. Whether I'll outright say no, I don't know. I really don't know whether I'll actually just say no, that's bad. I may not outright say yes. I may want to go and research it myself.
But you definitely feel like you wouldn't have one set choice. You feel like you definitely weigh up your options, look at both sides, look at the positives, look at the negatives, and then make up your own opinion.
Yeah. I'm not saying about me as much, but if it comes to my children, yeah, I would want to explore every option. I say to my kids all the time, I say to my sons all the time, if it comes to that, I will move the entire world upside down just so that you are not disadvantaged wrongly. Obviously, I'm not going to be able to move the entire world upside down, am I? It's just a metaphorical thing to say. But
you do
I
everything.
understand the parents who want to trial I understand the feeling and the thinking of those parents who want to trial the medicinal, components present in marijuana.